Hi, I'm Reagan Sanders. I am going to be a sophomore this fall semester. I'm majoring in EEE, Environmental Ecological Engineering, and hoping to minor in political science. For the first question, tell about a team that you enjoyed working on. I have worked with many teams. One of my favorite teams that I've ever worked with is probably, aside from my current position as a CA, because I really do like the team I have right now as a CA. And that one I think I just enjoy a lot because everyone that I work with is super personable. We all made quite an effort to get along with each other. We have a Snapchat group chat where we just talk to each other, tell each other what's happening at desks, for instance. Everyone's really good at filling each other in after shifts to the next person that's taking over. And also everyone's really quick about picking up shifts. So if someone is in a bind and needs to get a shift covered at the last minute, usually there will be someone there that can take it or at least take part of it, or whatever the situation may be. But the first team that came to mind actually was my swim team. I started swimming with the swim team when I was 7, and then I started coaching it when I was about 12 or 13. I wasn't employed coaching it at that time, it was more volunteer coaching. But when I turned 14, I started coaching for pay. And I think that this team, what I like about it so much is just that, again, I think a big factor in whether or not you like a team is how much effort you put into trying to be friends with them outside of the contract, so to speak, because you don't have to be friends with your coworkers outside of work. But with that team, we always made an effort to make the team enjoyable. Growing up, we always would go to dinners after our swim meets. And so when I started coaching, that practice had kind of died out because our original head coach that I had always worked with growing up had moved to a different team. So once I got that position of coaching, I tried to reinstate that along with other things like team breakfast, team field trips, team parties, things like that, just to really increase that team bond. And then I think another thing is just your coworkers have to want to be there. And it's very clear whenever working with the swim team that everyone wants to be there. Everyone loves their job. Everyone knows what they're doing. If they don't know what they're doing, they're not going to fake it. They're going to ask for help. And that just allows things to run smoothly. The second question, tell about a time you experienced exceptional customer service and how that changed the way you serve customers. Honestly, the first thing that came to mind isn't exactly a time where I personally was the customer, but in the past in the past spring semester, I worked with Aramark and I worked at Starbucks in Jersey Mike's on campus. And at Starbucks, there was this one employee that I would work with pretty frequently. Every time I worked, he would be on register, I think purely because he was just so good with customer service. I think customer service is definitely one of those things that you either have or you don't have. Sure, it is a learned skill, but some people are just better at communicating with other people, better at empathizing with the customers if there is a situation where that is necessitated. But what I really learned from this fellow employee, every single customer that came in, he would greet them, he would take their order. Usually he would give some sort of substitutes for them to try. If they ordered your plain chai tea latte, he would ask them if they had ever tried it with oat milk, for instance, or he would ask them if they had ever tried some other substitute, if they had ever added some syrups into it. He'd ask them how sweet they like their drink and give them different types of recommendations for the future because, whatever you order at Starbucks is so customizable and there are so many different drinks you can try. So he wanted to help them out always. And he just always made a connection with the customer, would compliment them, ask them about their day, things like that. And was just so good at doing that, that I just tried to take a lot of what I saw him doing and incorporate it into how I deal with customers from now on. Number 3, thinking about diversity, how do you encourage an inclusive environment? I think encouraging an inclusive environment is really just best done in understanding that everyone has different backgrounds, everyone has different needs, wants, things of that sort. There is really no way to fully, as an employee, incorporate diversity in the environment because, of course, I'm not affecting who is and is not getting hired. And so the diverse team wouldn't come from me. But if there is a diverse team of people you're working with, it's trying to understand them and not being closed-minded to how people were raised. I think working in my position currently, a lot of the people that I'm working with are, for instance, international students. And so a lot of them, I've learned so much from them, just keeping an open mind and asking to hear about things whenever they would talk about, for instance, how they have zip cars, I believe they're called here. Whenever they talk about that, I was like, what is that? Because I had never heard of it because I have my own car. I'm fortunate enough to be able to bring my own car up here. And they obviously are not given that same benefit because they can't bring their car up here. It's really costly to do that. And so hearing about things like that, or hearing about a fellow coworker telling me how they can't have Venmo back home, so his dad has to use his account. I think mostly just keeping an open mind and asking to learn more, like always seeking to learn more. As I listed in my strengths, top 5 strengths, I am a learner, and that is something that I always try to incorporate. I think that the best way you can have a diverse mindset and encourage diversity is just by listening to other people that are from a different background than you are. Number 4, give an example of a time you had to explain a complicated process to a person and explain. I think in any sort of job that I've had, I've definitely been given many instances where I had to explain complicated processes to people. I think one of the most complicated processes to explain to someone is directions, just in general. As a person who is somewhat directionally challenged, I find it pretty difficult to explain that. And obviously working at a dorm where, you know, you have all these new incoming college students and coming in with their parents are going to have questions of where should we go to eat, where's this, where's that, and giving directions on how to get there. I think the specific example that came to mind, I was working at Earhart's desk, I believe. It might have been Shreve. And I was asked where the loading dock was, and it's kind of difficult to explain where a loading dock is, especially without a map in front of me. And so I had to just do my best to recreate it. And I think the best way to explain a complicated process is obviously to simplify it. And I think the best way in doing that is like explaining it how I would have understood it if I was that person, because I am so directionally challenged. So trying to give things that are around what it is that they're looking for, big like landmarks, so to speak. Number 5, what is an area in which you feel you need improvement? Honestly, an area I feel I need improvement in, sometimes even though I just explained how I can simplify things, I think sometimes I do overcomplicate things. Sometimes if someone comes up and I don't necessarily know the answer to their question right away, rather than, you know, my first resort being calling up, even though that is the process we're supposed to do, I'm just a very independent person, and I like to be able to resolve my own problems on my own and not necessarily burden, so to speak, even though it is that person's job while they're on the clock. I don't necessarily want to burden that person with the call, because then they might have to log that, and it just complicates things. So I try to resolve it on my own first, and that can be a little difficult because then you're showing to the customer that you really don't know what you're doing at the moment, because even if you're buying time, it's usually pretty apparent that I don't know what I'm doing, and it also just isn't necessary. I should just call up. So being able to ask for help, I guess, when I need it, rather than trying to do it on my own. Number 6, tell us about a challenge you had to overcome. What steps did you take to overcome it? I think a challenge I had to overcome was definitely just adjusting to college life. Coming from, especially during COVID, coming from going to a high school where I knew how things were expected to work. I went to 7 classes a day, and I always got to go to those classes in person at that, and it just made the experience that much more enjoyable and the classwork that much easier, because I couldn't come up with an excuse to not go to class. But I had so much freedom, I guess, this past semester with everything being online, and it was just very easy to get caught up in that, and also easy to get caught up in wanting to go meet people and enjoy college life as much as you can during COVID. So it was hard to find that balance at first, but I think asking for help was important, finding people that I could work with on things, so that way I wasn't missing out on social life, but I was able to also do my schoolwork at the same time, was a big help in doing that. Would I do anything different if I was faced with it again? I think I probably wouldn't have done anything different, except maybe just going into it more well-versed with what I was expected to do, but there really is no way to actually come into this environment and know what's expected from you. What 3 things do you want us to remember most about you? I think the 3 things I want people to remember most about me are that I am adaptable. I adapt to whatever situation is presented in front of me. I am a learner, like I said. I always like to learn from my coworkers, learn from my peers. And I think just that I'm a social person, and I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy learning about other people. And that's honestly why I enjoy customer service so much, because you get to see and meet so many different types of people that you otherwise wouldn't have been given the opportunity to do. Thank you.